Coming up on Columbus Connection, Columbus is in for some big things, and we're going to tell you how you can be a part of it. Welcome to Columbus Connections. I am your host, David Britt. Now, you may have heard of Columbus 2025. You may not have. You know that Columbus has a lot of great things going on, and we're just focused on where we're going to be in the future. Now, I have with me Mr. Billy Blanchard, and he's a part of this great community, these great folks that are taking Columbus 2025 and looking at how we can put Columbus in that next level, in that next category. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Now, you're a native of Columbus.
I am.
Strong roots in Columbus. And first, let's just talk about this Columbus 2025.
Sure.
How did it come to be?
Well, it really started a number of years ago. We had some transition at the Chamber in some of our economic development roles, some of the leadership positions. One in particular is Bill Murphy. He moved to Columbus from Ohio. Mm-hmm. And when he got to Columbus, he kind of just watched and looked at our economic development activity and process and really began to raise his hand and say, I think we need a new strategy. We need to freshen it up a little bit. And we started listening to him and kind of hearing what he was saying, and then it became pretty evident that he was right. If you go back about 10 years or so before he started raising his hand, we did an economic development strategy. We used a guy named Mac Holliday from Market Street Services, but it was in early 2000s.
Right.
And it focused mostly on our products like land or buildings. It was pretty simple. And it worked well for us for a while. We had some success attracting industry, growing jobs. But the truth of the matter is that the world changed during those 10 years a lot.
Right.
And economic development changed as well. And it became more important to really look at a broader approach to economic development besides just what kind of land do you have or do you have buildings. And so
you're looking at, we have this land, have this buildings, we're here now, but where are we going to go? What are we going to do with it?
Right. How do you have a total package as a community that would make people want to live here? And if people are wanting to live here, then businesses are going to be here and use those people as their workforce. So that's what the new strategy needed to be about. And Bill saw that, and he really pressed on the community to take that step.
Right, and take that step they did. You guys have a dream team of board members and even partners and people looking to make this thing come together, and you're the chair of that. So how is it just being the chair and being the guy that's helping put all this together?
Well, it's fantastic. I mean, it's a lot of fun. One, it's a real honor and privilege to be able to be a part of it. It is a wonderful group of people that represent a diverse part of our community. And really what we did was we went out and actually hired Mac Holliday again to come into the community again for the second time and help us build this strategy. And from that we put together this incredible team of people who sat on a committee to help put it together.
Gotcha. So you look at comparable cities to Columbus, cities that have similar size, similar population, and you say they're here, we're here. What do we need to do to not be them, but be the best version of ourselves?
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting question because I think to really know what you need to do and how to be the best version of yourself, you really have to know what the truth is and what the facts are, and you really have to know who you are. And one of the most critical steps of this process that Mac walked us through was a community assessment. And when I say community, it was a regional assessment. It was not just Columbus itself, but Phoenix City, Harris County, the surrounding counties, the metro area that we looked to. So Mac and his team walked us through an assessment to really define who we are. And he used focus groups for people in the community, surveys that a lot of folks in the community responded to, interviews, but beyond that, digging in and getting a hold of a lot of data.
Yeah.
And
so you got to see the good, the bad, the ugly, the truth.
We did, and quite frankly, it was pretty painful.
Wow.
We began to see things about our community that we didn't really know and we really didn't want to see.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we did want to see it because everybody on this committee decided, look, we have to know what the facts are. And if you know what the facts are, then you can know what you need to do to address them. And so we learned some tough things, but we also saw what do we need to work on.
Right.
And that's how the strategy was built.
Right. And you kind of grouped that into some key areas.
We did.
How did that?
There were some key findings that we really started with. I'll walk through a couple of them with you.
Sure.
But one of them was just looking at the population growth and the job growth in this region. If you look at the population growth, and we look from 1970 to around 2013 or so, we grew about 24% in this metro area. When you look at 61 metro areas around the southeast, we were number 58.
Oh, wow.
And so we weren't really high on the list from a population growth standpoint. Our job growth was 1.7% in a 10-year period that started in 2005. So in that last 10-year period, we grew jobs 1.7%, which of the 9 key communities we compared ourselves against in the southeast, that was number 8. And so we weren't really growing jobs either. So, we learned a little bit about the economic reality of our community, and that is that we have higher poverty rates than a lot of these communities. Almost 22% of the population lives in poverty in this region.
And when you say this region, we're talking Columbus, we're talking Phoenix City, Harris County.
That's right. Marion County,
Right.
Talbot County. And so, and to add to that poverty rate, 1 in 3 children grow up in poverty in our community, in this region. So that's 33%. So those were some things that were pretty shocking for us to see. We also realized that from a job growth standpoint, some of the larger companies that we are so fortunate to have in our community, let's say an Aflac or TSYS or Synovus, and even some of the larger private companies, they have not been able to be the driver of employment growth over the last 10 years like they have maybe the 10 or 20 before that. And so we needed a more diverse base of job growth and economic growth in the area. And unfortunately, what we found was from an entrepreneurial standpoint, we weren't getting it there.
Wow.
When you compare with other communities, we had a smaller percentage of businesses that were identified as self-employed, and we had a smaller percentage of our workforce working in companies that were 5 years old or younger than in the communities we compared against. And so we learned a lot about the economic reality of what we're dealing with.
Yeah. What were some of the good things that you learned?
Yeah, there's a lot of great things. One great thing is that the community, particularly Muskogee County now, is very supportive of its public education system. Most of the students who are eligible to be in the public school system are in the public school system. The community felt very positive about the school system. They're seeing a lot of improvement in some of the key metrics like graduation rate. Some of the schools that have been on failing school lists are moving off of those lists. There were some challenges with that, and I know we're talking about positives, but just as a side note, the students who graduate from this region, fewer of them go to the next level of education than they do coming out of these other communities, and those who do attain at a lower level than the students who come out of some of these other communities we compared against. So that's a challenge. But this is a very philanthropic community from a positive standpoint. There are a lot of champions who get really involved in the things that are going on here and provide a great source of leadership to get things done. There's a great quality of life. The respondents to the surveys and the interviews, people just really like living here. They think it's a good place to live. There's a lot to do. And the quality of life is high. And then maybe most importantly is Fort Benning.
Yeah.
It's a tremendous asset for our community and a $4.7 billion annual economic impact. So there's a lot of wonderful things about our community that were affirmed to us. There were some challenges that we saw that we needed to be able to address.
And I really like that people care, that you've seen these things, these honest things, that we're low in poverty, we're low in jobs and growth, and that people are actually wanting to do something about it.
Right.
And that seems like an obvious thing, like why wouldn't we? But so often those people who are in those situations, they get that feeling of, I've heard it so many times, oh, Columbus doesn't care.
Right.
This ain't the place you want to be. That comes from those things.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at, you're doing this 2025, a big part of that, bringing the jobs in, making this a vibrant place, working on the brand identity, that lifts the spirits of Columbus too. That lifts that morale, that lifts that thing, that cloud that people that cast that negative light.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that so many of our leaders actually are caring and working toward, doing something about it.
I think you're absolutely right, and it was fun to watch this group evolve through this process, and the passion that came around in everybody to want to do something about it. Like you talk about, to want to engage in some activity that actually changes the situation. And what we talked about a couple of things. We talked about the fact that what we're doing is not, beautifying a community. It's not building buildings. It's not all that stuff. It's about people. And it's about helping people change the station that they are in life and creating an environment that allows them to do that. And so it's a transformative process, and the folks who are involved in doing it right now are really excited about it and excited to contribute to doing that. There came out of this 3 overarching themes.
Okay.
That everything we do, we want them to affect one of these 3 things. Improving the quality of life for everybody who lives in the region, reducing poverty, and increasing prosperity.
Gotcha.
So those 3 pretty powerful things. They're big ideas, they're big dreams, but everything we're doing on a strategic level is geared towards having an impact on one of those 3 things.
Gotcha. So how does it work? Because right now you guys are in the early stages, you guys are planning, you guys are working on implementing some of those plans. How do we get from here to there?
Yeah. Well, maybe the best way to do that is just tell you a little bit about what the strategy looks like and how it's broken up. We're calling it, we're saying that we have 5 action areas that we want to address. And we call them action areas, going back to our last comment, because we want to actually do something.
Right.
One of the things we said over and over is we don't want to build a strategy that we can all read and feel really good about and then put on a shelf and not do it.
Right.
It has to be actionable. And so the action areas, there's 5 of them. One of them is talented and educated people. And this is a huge piece of this strategy. This is about bringing together the education components of this region and the workforce development pieces of this region, and bringing them to a point where they can create programs and a process that we're calling a cradle to career process, where you can get young kids in school at the right time. They go to school with the right amount of learning and education already that they get from their family at home or from a daycare or early learning center. And then you keep them in school through these critical points, whether it be through middle school and then through high school, and get them to a point where they can get credentialed in some way. So for some people, that's going to college. For some people, that's go to a technical college, get a skill set or a trade, learn a trade. But get them credentialed so they can be ready to go to work. And so you've got this cradle to career approach. It's vitally important. It's huge. It's a huge body of work. So Jackie Lowe is a retired executive from Georgia Power. She is responsible for that action area. And she's got folks from the education community, from workforce, development areas, people who work in the industry, trying to figure out how you collaborate to build a cradle to career program. That is to build a local workforce, to grow our workforce. That's a long-term process, right?
Right.
And so at the same time we're doing that, we have to be able to address the needs of the businesses that are in our community today. And so where there are workforce gaps, we need to understand what those are and work with Columbus State, work with Columbus Technical College to be able to provide the skill sets in the workforce they need to work today. So there's 2 different parts of that.
Gotcha.
But it's very important and a really big deal.
So that's cradle to career. What are some of the other action plans?
So that's the workforce piece, and it's targeted it's talented and educated people. There's a targeted economic development group as well, and that action group is focusing more on the traditional economic development. There's 2 components to that really. There's attracting new industry to town, but there's also, and maybe more importantly for us, making sure we have a very real and deep connection to the industry that exists here.
Gotcha.
And that we know what kind of challenges they're having in our community. We know what things work well in our community. And we are in a relationship with the folks who run those places and make the decisions around those places enough that when the opportunity comes for them to expand, that they want to do that here. And that's a very powerful thing. Pratt & Whitney is a great example of that. We've recently had that announcement. The investment that they're making and the jobs they'll create that's from an existing business. And so they're already here, we already know them, we ought to be really good at helping facilitate those kind of expansions here. But it's interesting that that targeted economic development group and that workforce development group, those two go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
When we had the announcement about Pratt & Whitney up in Atlanta, as soon as the governor finished making the announcement, one of the executives of the local plant leaned over to me, I was standing next to him, and he said, now we got to find the people.
Right.
So that's the first thing on his mind. I mean, it's hardly even been announced, and the first thing he's worried about is we need to find the people.
So the action plan, everything ties in together. Building that education, that building the people
Yep.
for these places, bringing
That's
these places here and making them want to come here.
That's right.
By having a quality of life that, if I'm going to bring a plant here, I want my employees to be able to go out and enjoy themselves.
Yep.
And then knowing Columbus, they have the brand of Columbus. I heard
right.
you talking about that.
Yeah.
Establishing Columbus as its brand. How do we brand Columbus?
Well, that's interesting because you mentioned two things just then, a quality of life and the branding. And those are two separate action groups in this exercise. So I've mentioned two of them. The other two is having a vibrant and connected places. That's being led by Betsy Covington, who runs the Community Foundation. And that group is trying to make sure we create quality of life we need to have in this community. And to do that by connecting the different parts of our community. So the Riverwalk connects us with Phoenix City. It connects the uptown area with Fort Benning. Brings those populations together in a way that they can interact with one another and relax with each other, recreate, and that sort of thing. But that needs to happen with uptown in the Liberty District, District and City Village, South Columbus and Midtown and North Columbus and East Columbus, the Dragonfly Trail, connecting these areas with walking and biking trails or transit. That's what that's all about, and that helps to create a quality of place where people want to work. And what we know about workforce, when you talk about how these are all connected, is there was a time where you got out of college or you got your skill and you went to find a job, and you went to where that job was. And what we know now is that people come out of school or whatever they're doing, and they go find a place they want to live because of the experience they can have.
Right.
And then they figure, when I get there, I can find a job. And what's happening is the communities that have that quality of life are attracting the workforce, and the businesses are coming to the workforce.
And that's where the arts come in, and that's where
Exactly.
all those other things come in. That,
Exactly.
Yeah, that tie into
That's
it.
where all that comes in. And then you mentioned branding, and having a cohesive image and identity for this community is a fourth action group. And that's being led by Peter Bowden at the CVB. And he's working on a literal brand, an image for our community. And once that's in place, a marketing campaign, an advertising campaign. If you leave this area and you go to Atlanta sometimes, or anywhere outside of Atlanta, and you say you're from Columbus, a lot of people look at you, and they may say, well, I go through Columbus when I go to the beach, or have you heard that before?
Yeah.
Or isn't that where Fort Benning is? Or are you talking about Columbus, Ohio? I mean, those are kind of the main
So we
answers.
don't want those to be the top three.
Well, no. I mean, and people who come here say, man, this is the best kept secret around.
Right.
And we don't want to be the best kept secret around. We want people to know our story and to know who we are. And so this part of the strategy is, how do we get outside of Columbus and tell the story of who we are and entice people to want to come check it out.
And that's what makes Columbus so interesting to me. If I go downtown, you may see an old elderly couple, you may see a guy riding by on a pickup truck with a dog on the back, you may see a Cadillac with some 28-inch rims, and you may see somebody with purple hair, and they're all in the same place.
Right.
I've had conversations with people from South Africa and France and all these places right here in Columbus.
Yeah.
And yet we're still a best kept secret.
Right.
You know, it's those two things.
Yeah. Well, we haven't been able to tell our story well.
Yeah.
And we're about to. And it's going to be fun to watch it. And I think the community will really benefit from it. Real quickly, the last group, I said there was 5 of them.
Yeah.
It is an enterprising culture. And this is one you mentioned earlier about entrepreneurship. You know, we've just found that we're not as good as some other communities at being able to create an environment where people can start businesses. And so we want to invest in the ecosystem or the infrastructure that allows for people to start up businesses and be successful in that way. Interestingly enough, the history of our community is that Aflac was a startup business from a family. TSYS was a department of another company that was started inside of a business and then spun out on its own. Synovus was a family-owned business that started up, and there are so many other examples. And so, why don't we have more of those coming out of Columbus? Well, and not just Columbus, this entire region. And so that's what this effort's going to do. Troy University over in Phoenix City has already started a business accelerator to help people be able to start a business when they really don't know how. We're going to be putting together funding sources for people, whether it be venture capital, angel investing, that sort of thing. But having maker spaces, having counseling services like small business development or SCORE. But what we want to do in this strategy is try to bring all of those places together into a physical, central place for entrepreneurship in our community. And so it can be a one-stop shop for somebody who's interested in starting a business. And we think that will be incredibly important to our community to diversify our economy and our growth in employment. And lastly, before I forget, let me mention this, because I've mentioned 5 critical action areas. I haven't mentioned Fort Benning, but it's such a big deal. And Fort Benning is integrally involved in every one of those 5 areas. So from a workforce standpoint, I mean, tremendous resource for our region to have Fort Benning here from a workforce, whether it's a spouse of a soldier or a soldier who's getting out of the Army. These folks come with a lot of experience. They've been a lot of places around the world. They know how to do stuff. They know how to lead. They know how to manage risk. And so they're a great resource for our region from a workforce standpoint, and they're connected to that process. But the same holds true for entrepreneurism, and it holds true for quality of life, and even the targeted economic development. I mean, defense contractors. I mean, we need to work on strategies around how can we have a healthy group of defense contractors doing business here in this community, making things that the Army needs to do their work. So the commanding general of Fort Benning is very connected to Columbus 2025, and his team of people are involved in every one of these action areas. Vitally important that we do that.
Right. If you're just joining us, we're talking about Columbus 2025. We know where we are, we know where we want to be, and there's a committee working, and they know the truth about Columbus, all the good, bad, and the ugly, how far we were behind, some things that we really need to work on, poverty, job growth. But they're working on it, and they care. They really do. It's not one of those groups that we're just going to get together, have tea, talk about some stuff, and walk home and feel good about ourselves. There's some things really going on in Columbus that you're going to see that's really going to help us get to that next level. Now, of all the research they've done, they've looking at 5 areas that really come together and really look on making this a better place. Tell me, just touch on those areas again.
Okay, so there's a workforce group. It's talented, educated people, and it's about building a local, homegrown workforce, attracting workforce from outside, and having that available for industry in our community to put to work and grow their business.
Gotcha.
There's a targeted economic development group. That group is doing the traditional work of economic development, of trying to attract new industry to our community, but I think for us, more importantly, making sure we're connected to the existing industry we have, so when they decide they need to grow or expand, hopefully they'll be doing it here.
Right.
So that's what that group is going to do. There's an enterprising culture group, and that's about creating an ecosystem for entrepreneurs to be able to access capital, to be able to have resources on how you write a business plan, how you really develop your product, how you figure out what to sell it for and how to sell it, those kinds of things. And we want to create a physical center that is an entrepreneurial center in our community and in this region. Then there's this quality of life piece, vibrant and connected places, and it's about connecting the different parts of our community and the people who live in those parts to one another in a environmentally pleasing, aesthetic way, so that it can create the kind of energy we want. And then the last piece is having a cohesive image and identity. It's the branding piece, and it's how do we put together an image and a brand around this community and around this region so that we can go outside of this region and tell people how great we are and all the good things that are going on. Those are the 5 areas. They're action areas. It's about execution. Each one of them has very clear strategic objectives, and there are tactical recommendations on how to accomplish those objectives. And I think maybe most importantly, there's a scorecard for each one of those 5 groups. And it's quantifiable, it's numbers, you can measure it. And so every year we're going to be basically putting out the report card. And this is what this work is doing to make a difference. And quite frankly, if it's not making a difference, that's just as important to know. So we can go back and say, okay, we're working on this, but it's not changing the outcome.
Right.
So what do we need to change about what we're working on?
Right. Now, who are some of the partners that you all are working with in Columbus 2025?
Well, some key partners to help us get started was the Development Authority of Columbus, huge. The Chamber of Commerce is huge. The Community Foundation has been a huge partner in this effort and getting this process up and running. The CVB, Peter Bowden, is taking on the branding initiative, and he's doing an incredible job with that. But beyond that, there are multiple organizations that are contributing to the effort financially, contributing people to the effort. And we've got a committee, an implementation committee of about 40 people. And those 40 people are set up to just look at the work of these 5 action areas and make sure that we're staying on target with the strategy and that we're actually accomplishing the things that we said we were going to accomplish. And those people represent government, they represent regional, Phoenix City, they represent Harris County, they represent clergy, there's private business, there's public companies that are represented on there. So it is a great cross-section of people throughout the community. And then as we get further into this, and we're really only a handful of months into actually doing this after we announced it early this year. As we get further into it, there will be a lot of partner organizations that'll come to the table and bring what they're doing to add to the benefit of Columbus 2025. Columbus 2025 is interesting. It's not owned by any one group.
Which is good.
Which is really good. It's a collaborative group for a lot of people. And one of the things that we want to make sure we do is that we don't try to take all the wonderful things that are going on in the community and take over those things, but we want to bring those things into the process so that the business accelerator that Troy University's already done knows about some of the incubator space and maker space, and they're coming together and they can work in the same direction for the same outcome. And so you don't have a lot of different individual groups or pockets working on things in isolation.
Work. Yeah. Now, how can some of these people, these groups, and people that want to know more about it or want to help, how can they contact you?
Well, there's a website, Columbus GA 2025, and I encourage folks to go on the website, read about the assessment, to learn about what we found out about the community, read about the strategy, what are some of the strategic objectives, what are some of the tactical things we're going to be working on and doing, what are we trying to accomplish. You can sign onto the website to indicate an interest in being involved. And I think as the partner groups become more involved over time, maybe the best way is for folks to get engaged in those groups that they know, organizations they're connected with, get involved in those groups and the way they're connected to Columbus 2025.
Right. Sounds good. Sounds like you guys have your work cut out for you, but it sounds like it's a great thing that's going to end up happening.
It's a lot of fun, and I think it will be a transformative point for our community. And maybe 25 years from now, we'll look back and be on our 5th successive 5-year plan.
It's going to keep going.
And say, aren't we glad we started that 25 years ago? Look at where we are today. Look at the things we've accomplished. And look at what we've become, not by default, but by design, because we plan to get there.
Right. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk some more about Columbus 2025.
Nationally ranked colleges and universities offer technical certifications and advanced degrees. Recruitment and retention programs attract the best and brightest. Workforce development boosts productivity through skilled labor and customized training. Cradle to career education transforms lives, creating innovative thinkers with a passion for lifelong learning.
Talented, educated people. That's what makes Columbus 2025 work.
Welcome back to Columbus Connections. We've been talking Columbus 2025. We're looking at where Columbus is, the good, the bad, and how we can take those things and make Columbus even better. Now, we've just spoken with Billy Blanchard, who is spearheading this. Him and a lot of great people in our community really care about the community and really want to make that change and make things better. But I want to talk more to folks that are younger in the community. And this next gentleman with me, he's young in the community, but he's also had a great look in helping this Columbus 2025 come together. So it's going to be just great to see it through his eyes. Mr. Jeremy Ackles, how you doing?
I'm doing well, sir.
No stranger to the show.
Absolutely not. Pleasure
Now,
to be here again.
I want to talk to you, one, because if I go to the website of Columbus 2025, and you're at the bottom of the website as the contact guy,
That's it.
so I know you've been doing some work.
Absolutely, yeah. I am the program manager for Columbus 2025, so I'm charged with, managing our communication tools and all of our processes associated with implementation. So that means reporting out on progress to our volunteers and to the public, and just doing a number of things, closely working together with our our VP of Economic Development at the Chamber, Bill Murphy. I work directly with him to ensure that all activities associated with the implementation of Columbus 2025 are effectively planned, integrated, networked, and collaborated between our action area volunteers and our community programs that we utilize and work with to ensure the success of Columbus 2025. So
Now, how long have you been in Columbus?
well, I've been in Columbus pretty much all my life.
So you've been here all your life.
Yes,
and,
that's
and this
it.
is why I really want to get your perspective of it, because you're younger and you've been here all your life. You have a different look of what Columbus is. You've seen where Columbus is, and you've seen where it's going. And then on top of that, you've been working here with Columbus 2025 to kind of do some of that groundwork and make those connections. So how does that affect your view of Columbus and where you see Columbus being?
Wow, well, just getting to see and learn some of the different things that we learned through the Regional Prosperity Initiative. I mean, I can see Columbus going, to the top. I mean, being one of those top cities in the South. I mean, there's a lot of surprising things that people don't know about Columbus, and just looking into the future of Columbus is very bright.
Now, how can they contact you? I understand you guys are, on the internet, on the phone, but you're also social media.
That's it. That's
How can
it.
they contact you?
Well, first, I would encourage anyone to, first of all, learn about Columbus 2025. You can do that by visiting our website. It's columbusga2025.com, and there you can go to our Learn tab, where you can read all the documents from the Regional Prosperity Initiative, and see it for yourself. I mean, and also on that page, you can see each one of our action areas, our goals and metrics, how we plan to do this. So that's what I encourage anyone to do first, is to learn about Columbus 2025. You can also engage with our community partners through our website as well. And meaningful progress requires investments from people from throughout the community. So I would encourage everyone to visit our website, but also our social media efforts. Follow us on Facebook. That's a really, really close way to stay involved on what's going on with Columbus 2025 on the weekly or monthly basis. So Facebook, we're also on Twitter, and all of our videos are on YouTube. So look us up on YouTube as well.
And here's another reason why I'm glad you're here, is that to get to this place where we're going to be, it's not just our leaders, it's not just those folks at the top of it. Too often, I think young folks, they have that drive and want something to happen,
Right.
but they feel like it's not their time yet.
Absolutely.
Well, especially now more than ever, anybody's time can be now.
That's it.
So just to see younger people making those steps, it shows that it can start at any age.
Yep.
That you don't have to wait until you've got this level or got this position or got this job. It can start while you're in high school, while you're in college, or when you finish college. We need all those people to get to this place.
That's absolutely true, and I mean, our younger generation is definitely a part of our plan, especially with our talent attraction and retention efforts here. All of our middle school, all the way from the cradle all the way to a career, we're looking to make sure that we instill and align those education systems with the workforce systems here in our region, so that we can be prosperous in the future.
Gotcha. Give us those contact avenues one more time.
Absolutely. Visit our website, columbusga2025.com, our Facebook, ColumbusGA2025, and also Twitter, ColumbusGA2025. And those are our main avenues on social media. Also YouTube. You can just look up Columbus 2025 there as well. So
there you have it. Columbus 2025. Look it up. Find out about it. Find out how you can help. There's a lot of people in our community that really care about what's wrong with it and how to make it right and how to make it better. And we all can be a part of that. So let's make sure we do. Thanks for watching. This is Columbus Connections.